So from Rhea, she asks, do you think intelligent life might have discovered a way to get to us, therefore traveling at the speed of light? And is that physically possible for someone to do?
In principle, yes, it's possible. And using the light sail technology, it's doable, even if you limit yourself to 1G, which is the kind of acceleration we have here on Earth. So in principle, you just need a lot of power to propel humans to nearly the speed of light at 1G. If you accelerate at 1G for 1 year, you end up at the speed of light. And for that, you need to harvest all the power that is intercepted by the Earth. So currently we're using a small fraction of it, but potentially, another civilization could harvest that much power and have those giant spaceships that are propelled to close to the speed of light if this propulsion continues for a year. Whether they came to visit us, I'm not sure that we are that interesting of a target. I would assume that there is nothing for us to offer them, and that's one reason that we are not being targeted. But who knows? Maybe they did pass by. Maybe they realized that we're not advanced enough for them to make us aware of their existence. Who knows? I mean, all possibilities should be on the table. So the best approach for us is to look out and collect data and figure out what's going on. I should say, if you enter a room full of strangers, it's prudent to be quiet and listen, not to speak out.
Thank you. The next question, are we sending the spacecraft all the way to Alpha Centauri to look for life because we're certain that none of the near planets, which are within our own solar system, have life?
Oh, no, we don't know that for sure. So Mars may still have some life on its surface, or had life before, and that's what Perseverance will try to find out. Then there are moons like Enceladus or Europa that have ice on their surface, but have astronomers think, liquid water under the ice. And in principle, you could have life in that liquid water. And one way to find out is, for example, in Enceladus, there are these plumes of sort of like geysers, steam coming out through cracks in the ice. And we can, for example, send a mission that will cross those plumes and collect samples of whatever is inside these plumes to figure out if there is any trace of biological material there. That was not done yet, and it would be an interesting future mission. On Mars, we have Perseverance, and another target of interest is Venus. There was a report about potentially detecting phosphine in the cloud deck of Venus just in September last year, but it's not clear yet if that detection is real. It's being debated in the literature, but moreover, it will never be conclusive as an indicator of life. And the best approach would be to send a mission that will go into the cloud decks and scoop the material there and figure out if there are any traces of biological, of microbes on droplets inside those cloud decks. So there are lots of places where you can go and check if there is life in the solar system, but all of that would be microbial life. And as far as I'm concerned, the most exciting question is, are we the smartest kid on the block, and what kind of intelligent civilizations are out there or were out there in the past?
From Mark, thank you. That was a very fascinating talk. How do you think society would change if life on another planet was irrefutably confirmed?
Yeah, it would be a dramatic change. It will. I think it's the biggest scientific discovery that humans can make. Because just like my daughters, when they went to the kindergarten, that was a shock for them to see other kids, some of which have qualities better than theirs. And if we find the intelligent civilizations, it might be in the form of some technologies that we've never imagined that would look like magic to us. If we find the biological signatures, it could represent life forms that are completely different than what we have here. So we can learn a lot. Now, it will change our perspective about our place in the universe and our aspirations for the future, and what to do about it. How to communicate with them potentially, or what can we learn from them. And there will be new branches of study, everything with an astro in front, like astrolinguistics for communication, astropolitics, astroeconomics, all kinds of new fields that will emerge, depending on the kind of encounter. If we just find space trash in the form of Oumuamua, the first thing I would like to get is a photograph, but then we can land on some of these pieces of material, of equipment, and try to figure out what they were originally and who could have sent them. And I think it opens a completely new window into the search for other civilizations. Now, the strange thing I should say is that the mainstream of the scientific community pushes back on this discussion. They don't want to discuss it. There is a taboo. And I find it quite strange, because the public is extremely interested in that, and the public funds science. And there is no reason why we can't search just in the same way that we search for the nature of the dark matter. That is also a search in the dark. In fact, the search for technological civilizations is less speculative, because we know that we exist. We know that other planets, like half of the sun-like stars, have Earth-sized planets roughly at the same separation. So if you replicate the physical conditions on Earth in billions of other Earth-Sun systems, the most conservative assumption would be to say that the outcome is reproduced. And I think that it should be the mainstream assumption. And then the only issue is, let's go and search for it and find out, how common was technological life throughout the history of the Milky Way. Why should that be considered speculative or risky? I just don't understand that. And I'm trying to convey this message in my book. I've worked on the early universe and cosmology for decades, and on black holes. And I applied exactly the same scientific approach to other subjects. And the pushback was never of this nature. And I just fail to understand why my colleagues are so hostile to this discussion. And frankly, I do think that it's the most exciting frontier we could have in the future of astronomy.
From Maria, what advice would you give to parents to foster space curiosity in children and develop a curiosity for anomalies in daily life?
Yeah, first of all, I should say that young people and children in particular are my favorite audience. And I told my publisher that my goal with the book would be, if there is a kid somewhere that will decide to become a scientist as a result of reading my book, I would be really satisfied. That would be enough for me. The reason I like young people is because they don't carry prejudice. They don't have a baggage. They're not attached to their egos like my tenured colleagues in academia. And I very much hope that they will maintain their childhood curiosity throughout their life. At least that's what I try to do. So I don't care much about my image, how many likes I have on Twitter. I follow the mantra of basketball coaches. They say to the team members, keep your eyes on the ball, not on the audience. And the ball in the context of science is the evidence. So whenever you see anomalies, something unusual, you should pay respect to that and try to understand it and put some possibilities on the table and entertain them. There shouldn't be a taboo on such a topic. It makes no sense on a topic of an artificial origin. If it looks like the natural origin is in trouble, it doesn't really quite line up with the evidence, we should discuss it. Why is that problematic? I don't understand that. And I was asked by the Harvard Gazette, which is the official newspaper of Harvard University, Pravda, you might call it. I was asked, what is the one thing you would like to change about the world? And my answer was, I would like my colleagues in academia to behave more like kids. Somehow they lost this sense of innocence and being willing to take risks and being open-minded about all possibilities. What's the problem of being wrong or taking some risks? I mean, as long as you are not aiming to get honors and awards, if you are just trying to figure out nature, you know, part of the process, part of the learning experience is making mistakes. Einstein made 3 major mistakes in the last decade of his career. He argued that black holes don't exist, gravitation waves don't exist, and quantum mechanics doesn't have spooky action at a distance. You know, that's part of being at the frontier. You make mistakes, you learn. And then somehow people avoid that, and they work on subjects where they don't put any skin to the game, like string theory or extra dimensions or the multiverse, topics for which we have no way of testing those ideas, no experimental verification. And the advantage of that, if you don't put any skin to the game, is that you can never be proven wrong. And that seems to be very popular in the academic community, because if you're not proven wrong, you can get awards, prizes. But if you're like a kid, you're just trying to understand nature. It's not about us. You know, the activity is about a dialogue with nature. And trying to understand nature means following the evidence. And if the evidence leads you in a direction that you didn't expect, you should follow it like a kid. So my advice to the parents and the kids is to encourage that sense of curiosity, to encourage thinking that is not confined to the sandbox defined by everyone else. And, you know, frankly, personally, you know, I get a lot of pushback, and I don't benefit from advocating this. There are lots of people in academia that are critical, but I don't really care about it, because I think it will bring us to a healthier state in academia if people would follow what I'm advocating for.
I think we have time for just a couple more questions, if that's all right.
Yeah,
we just have so many coming in. From Marcel, what dangers might there be in discovering intelligent life?
That's interesting. I think that knowledge is always good. You can use it in a bad way. For example, nuclear energy. You know, we learned about nuclear energy, and then, you know, it was used for developing nuclear weapons, which are not good. They are destructive. But at the same time, it can be used for supplying the energy needs of society. And, you know, France gets most of its electricity out of nuclear reactors. So, so the point is, in my view, it's always good to have knowledge, because that guides you as to how to plan for your future. And so the most important knowledge we can have as the human species is knowing who lives in our neighborhood. You know, when you go and live in a new house, you want to know who lives in your neighborhood, because that affects how you behave and affects your perspective about who you are. I'm sure that my daughters would have preferred to stay at home, you know, not go to the kindergarten, because that would maintain their illusion that they're really the smartest kid on the block and have special qualities. And that's pretty much what leads my colleagues not to discuss, to put a taboo on this subject. It flatters their ego. It's all about ego, you know, either getting honors or awards or not hearing about things that, you know, we haven't discussed in the past. But that was pretty much the approach of the philosophers during the days of Galileo. They didn't want to look through his telescope. They just put him in house arrest. Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, and then we'll just do one more. What do you think the likelihood is of us finding intelligent life within our lifetimes that is willing to interact with us?
I think we will very likely, you know, if we don't put blinders, because obviously if you don't search, you will not find anything. And the current approach of the mainstream in astronomy is not to search. There is not much funding, federal funding for search for technological civilizations. There are hundreds of millions of dollars invested in the search for the nature of the dark matter, for example, but nothing of this magnitude in terms of the search for, I mean, a factor of 1,000 less funding in the search for technological signature, which is pretty much my frustration, this factor of 1,000. And also young people are discouraged. You know, the people I work with, many of them are worried about their job prospects because senior colleagues will tell them, don't work on that. Now, it's just like stepping on the grass and then saying, look, the grass doesn't grow. Obviously, we will not find anything if we don't look. So there is a precondition here. If we do look, I think that within our lifetime, we have a good chance of finding signatures of dead civilizations, especially by interstellar objects, taking photographs of them, and every now and then finding a plastic bottle. You know, there is this story that I mentioned in my book about Winston Churchill. In 1939, and by the way, I mentioned it this morning. I was hosted at the Sunday brunch and mentioned that story. In 1939, he wrote an essay about how exciting it would be to find life around other stars. But that was exactly when the Second World War broke, and he was then he became prime minister and was occupied with defeating Nazi Germany. And just think how many resources, how many lives were lost in that war. If we were to invest those resources in the search for life, which is the thing that Winston Churchill really wanted to do, we might have found the answer to whether we are alone by now. That shows that we are not very intelligent. We are wasting. I mean, nothing good came out of this war. People were killed, money was lost. What's the point? And, you know, this idea that some people are superior relative to other people that drove the Nazi regime, that's ridiculous because, you know, how can, I mean, the differences in DNA between humans is so insignificant relative to the universe at large. How can we feel superior relative to other people? You know, that, to me, that blows my mind. Like, people want to feel arrogant, you know, by all costs. And that is the source of all evil in human history, the desire to feel superior relative to others, the arrogance. And I claim that if we were all modest, we would have a much better future.
Well, thank you so much for this evening, Avi. Thank you everyone at home who joined us. And you can always check out more upcoming events at our website, howtoacademy.com, where you can also subscribe to How To Plus to see all of these amazing events for free and get our entire archive of events as well. Once again, Avi, thank you so much for tonight.